Good morning. I have 11 o'clock Central Time on my phone, so we will go ahead and get started. Thank you, everyone who has joined us. And as you see on your screen, you should have a poll open. If you haven't already answered that question, I'm going to give you just another minute to answer that question for us about whether you've made a New Year's resolution. And I'll give you guys just another minute to answer that question for us, and then I'll share our results from that, and we will get started. And I do want to share that a couple housekeeping things. If you can please keep yourself muted unless you have a question, then we appreciate it. It helps us with audio, helps with feedback. We are recording this session for those who are not able to join us live.
So on the TVs, they might know
tremendously when you stay muted with the audio. Okay, I'm going to end our poll. Thank you for those of you who completed it for us. And I'm going to share. We see that 63% of you did not make a New Year's resolution, and 38% of you did. So that's very interesting information that will kind of go along with what we're talking about today. So we are discussing today resolutions and goal setting. So I want to wish you all a very happy new year, and thank you for joining us today. We are Purdue Extension Health and Human Sciences educators, and I want to give a little bit of background on who we are and what Extension is about. So if you've attended our webinars in the past, this will be a little bit of a repeat, but we like to share who we are and where we come from so that you know a little bit more about us. So today, I am Megan Brothers. I am in Vanderburgh County, and my co-presenter is Brooke Goebel. You'll get to meet her here in just a minute. She is in Pike County. So we are our presenters for today. And Purdue Extension is part of the Cooperative Extension system. You may have heard of Cooperative Extension, you may not have, but we are a nationwide network of education and outreach. And so every state in the United States has a cooperative extension service that is tied with a land-grant university. The goal of these land-grant universities and colleges is to provide research-based education and also to provide resources not only for their own individual communities, families, but on a statewide level and a nationwide level. So a lot of our information and resources get shared across states and national levels, which is wonderful. It's a huge, amazing network of people that we are able to connect with. And so Indiana has Purdue University, and that's why we are the Purdue University Cooperative Extension Service. Our mission is providing practical research-based information to transform lives and livelihoods. We are a little unique in Indiana that we have 92 county offices. Some states have more regional efforts, but Purdue and Indiana have, every county has an extension office located in it, which is a really amazing opportunity for us to be able to engage locally. Right now we're engaging virtually, which has its own lovely pieces with it as well. And that we are able to reach more audiences than we would locally, but there is a local educator in your county who you can reach out to if you have questions or need resources, which is wonderful. And Purdue Extension covers 4 main program areas. We are the Health and Human Sciences area, but we also have our agricultural and natural resources, our community development, and then our 4-H and youth development program are also located within Extension. So for today, we will have a short evaluation at the end. We are funded through different arenas, and our funders want to know what we're doing. And the one way that we are able to give that information to our funders is through evaluation. So we'll have a very brief evaluation. We appreciate your feedback. All of our evaluations and surveys are anonymous and voluntary. So you're able to provide as little or as much information as you feel comfortable. And there's no, identifying information at all with any of them. And we'll provide you those links at the end. All right, so for today, I do encourage you to get out a piece of paper. We're going to share some resources with you, but you may want to take notes, and we do have an activity for you to do. So if you have some paper handy and a pen handy, you can get those out. But really today, we're going to talk about New Year's resolutions, including a little bit of the history behind resolutions and what some of those most common resolutions might be. We're going to look at why we want to have resolutions and why we want to look at setting goals. We're going to look at some barriers in how we fulfill those resolutions or don't fulfill those resolutions in some cases. And then we're going to learn about goals and how we can set goals to be successful with our resolutions and with our plans for the new year. So I want you all to go to this site. I'm going to post it on in the chat as well. But if you go to mentee.com and use this code, then we are going to do a little bit of a word cloud association for what you set your resolution for. And if you didn't set one yet, maybe you can think of something. So go to mentee.com and use this code below. And you can put more than one in there as well. And I'll give you guys just a couple minutes because some people might be on their phone and might have to get out of the site to go do that.
Hey, Megan.
Yes.
This is Gail. I've lost the view right now, so I can't see what the site name was and stuff. While I'm figuring myself out here, I just thought I'd let you know if you don't see or hear anything from me. That's why I'm technology challenged.
That is okay. We're trying to make things as easy as we can to accommodate everyone. Because I know some people are on their phones and some people are a little new to the Zoom technology. So that is okay. Okay, I'm seeing some really great stuff come in. And now I just have to figure out how to share it with you all. I thought it was going to show up directly on the PowerPoint and it isn't, but I will figure out how to share. Let's see. Okay, here we go. Keep putting those answers in. And I believe now you should be able to see our pretty word cloud that we've created. So I see some responses like consistency, healthy diet, reading the Bible, less screen time, more active, lighter, joy, exercise, routine. Great. I'll give you guys just another maybe 30 seconds to fill in some more. Be a better me, healthier diet, happy, adventurous, self-care, healthy eating, dream, routine. They keep moving around on me. More time with spouse. So these are some really great ones. All right, so that was kind of a fun little change here. All right. So let's move on and talk a little bit more about that. And maybe you'll see why we did that little activity. So what would you guess, if you want to add this in the chat, what would you guess is the most common resolution that people make? So I'm going to give you a second to put in the chat what you think is the most common resolution that is made. Losing weight, exercise, weight loss. Okay, good guesses. Yes, you are right on track there. So one study, and there's lots of different information and research and studies out there on this, but one that I found said that over 50% of resolutions were related to health. And that includes exercise, eating habits, healthier habits in general. And so what do you think is the second most common? Positivity, money, a financial. Good guesses. Yes, yes. So the second most common, with about 34% of this group that was studied, it was work and financial related. So that included things like saving money, getting out of debt, learning something new, or even getting organized. And so the third one that was the most common is under the social realm. And so those are things like spending time with family, helping others, enjoying life more. And so I saw all of these listed in your feedback that you guys provided. So we all kind of fall somewhere in those when we're looking at our resolutions and what we want to do for our new year. So I want to take a step back in time a little bit and talk about the history. Because as I was preparing for this, and as Brooke and I were preparing, we really were thinking about, how did this all start? Why do we make New Year's resolutions? What's the history behind this? So I did a little bit of digging and found that it actually began, and of course, history is a little bit subject to interpretation in some ways, but some of the interesting, I think, information I found is that there's some indications that even as long ago as ancient Babylonia, which was about 4,000 years ago, they did some promises. They made promises to their gods. And so they held celebrations in honor of their new year, which was held in March during their when their crops were planted. So that's how they measured their year, was based on their crop rotations and their crop planting. So they had a huge celebration, a big religious festival known as Akitu, I hope I pronounced that correctly, where they either reaffirmed their loyalty to their king or crowned a new king, and then they made promises to their gods. And so those are what might be considered as some of those maybe forerunners to some of those New Year's resolutions. So their thinking was, if they kept those resolutions, that the gods would bestow favor on them. And if they didn't, maybe they would fall out of favor. And so then there's even some information in ancient Rome, when the calendar was changed by Julius Caesar, who established that January 1st as that new year, as the first day of the year. And so they kind of kept the same idea of looking at how their gods were perceiving things, and they would offer sacrifices and make promises in that way as well, to be good, to make changes, so they would be in the favor of the gods. So then in about 1740-ish, John Wesley created this covenant renewal service, which was a bit of a New Year's celebration, an occasion for people to pray on and think about their new year, think about the year before, They'd have services and things like that. And so that's kind of where now we're starting to come into a little bit more present time. Some religious affiliations still provide and have services on New Year's and see that as a celebration time. Although most of our resolutions aren't necessarily related to religion, there is that interesting religious history to it, which I found kind of fascinating, that now resolutions are very much not related to our religion, or sometimes they are. I noticed a couple of you guys had some religious resolutions, which is really interesting as well. Okay, so now we're gonna talk about, so now we know where they started and how they've been around for a while. And so people know that that's always a talking point, is resolutions every year. What is your resolution going to be? Are you going to make one? All of that. So when we look at the research though, and there's again, different numbers out there, but about 45% of Americans make resolutions. We had 38% of our group had made a resolution. So that's pretty close to what they see nationally. But what would be your guess as to how many people follow through and have success with their resolutions? If you want to put in the chat, give me a guess, throw out a number. What percentage of Americans are successful with their resolutions? Less than half, 10%, 2%, 20%. You're in the right area, 5%. Yeah, so about 8% are successful. And so that is that's a pretty low number. And especially knowing that only half of Americans actually make resolutions, and that number seems to keep dropping as well. Over the years, it seems like fewer and fewer people actually sit down and make a resolution. And so that gets us to think about why. Why do we have so much trouble keeping a resolution when we make it? And so that takes us then into this, kind of the world of social psychology, and even a little bit into sociology of, why do we have trouble keeping these resolutions, and why do we not even make them? Why are we to that point where we're not even making resolutions anymore? So if we think about why we make a resolution, we're wanting to make some kind of change in our life. And so that's really what we're doing when we're making a resolution, is we're resolving to make a difference, make a change, do something for the new year. And so when we think about what matters, we assume that enjoyment is going to be important. Enjoyment is going to help us, and even having something that's important. So especially in those resolutions about being healthy and having healthier habits, saving money, spending time with our family members, enjoying life, those are all important. That's important for our physical, mental, and, emotional well-being. And so we assume that the amount of enjoyment and the amount of importance are what is going to help us to actually be successful. And what some research found is that that's not entirely true. So that piece of enjoyment is what really makes the difference. So if we're not enjoying what we're doing, we're not going to do it. And if you think about how you operate, if you're not enjoying something, you're a lot less likely to A, keep doing it, or B, to do it really well. And so that goes along every aspect of our life, not just with other resolutions. But when you look at that change, usually we're wanting to change something that we aren't liking. So it's either what we don't like about our current way of doing things or how things currently are. And we have to think about that as we're going forward here. So some things that affect that and affect our ability to keep those resolutions is our current choices. So what are we currently doing, and how is that currently working for us? So if we think about that on the level of enjoyment, our current lifestyle choices as Americans as a whole are that we're pretty sedentary. There's a lot of TV watching, a lot of sitting on the couch, a lot of maybe unhealthy eating. So a lot of snack foods and convenience foods that are consumed. And that's, again, very generalized to Americans as a whole. And so when we think about what we enjoy, and if you think about, especially looking at the media and looking at what the media provides us as what we should be enjoying, we are seeing things like watching movies, watching TV, streaming services are becoming huge. So all these shows that we are able to binge watch and watch all at once in a big setting, it's involving convenience foods everywhere. Everywhere you're seeing convenience foods and snack foods and things being thrown at you. So that's what we're seeing as what we should be able to enjoy and do. So if we're looking at changing some of those, we have to make sure that it's something that we are going to enjoy and that our brain is going to see as enjoyment. So that goes into our leisure activities. So what are we choosing to do when we are not working or not busy? So I know when I get home from work, I struggle with being active. And so the last thing I want to do is go do a big exercise routine, right? And that's for a lot of people, right? If we have a choice between binge watching Netflix and doing a big exercise routine, a lot of us might choose to binge watch the Netflix, especially if it's what we're used to. And so we look at that as that's our brain is seeing that those leisure activities is what we're enjoying. So that's what we're just kind of naturally be inclined to do. And it's that law of least effort. So what's going to take the least amount of effort, right, is creating and cooking this beautiful meal or popping something in the microwave, opening a bag of chips. So looking at it that way, it kind of makes a little bit of sense as to how why we, especially as a society, struggle so much with keeping these resolutions that we make. And so looking at it on the level of habits, and there's so much information out there on habits. If you want to look more about it, there's lots of stuff out there on creating habits and how habits are formed and why it's so hard to change habits, which is really what resolutions are wanting to create some sort of new habit for our lives around whatever area that is. So when we're looking at how we can be successful, we need to look at how our resolutions can become a habit for us. Because really, if it's not a habit, it's not going to be something that we're going to be able to sustain. So we have to make this a habit in our life. And so how do we do that? Because that's hard to do. And there's tons of stuff out there on how difficult habits are to form and to change. But the three big things with resolutions are that they need some kind of cue. That's some sort of reminder. It can be an object, a person, a feeling, a scent even sometimes. So people use a lot of scents and candles and things. So if you're wanting to set your mood for reading, or if you're setting your mood for working out, or if you're setting your mood for cooking something, you can do that. Or a lot of people put, notes on their wall, affirmations, things like that would be considered a cue. So that cue helps your brain to say, okay, now I need to do this. Then that has to become a routine. So it has to actually be something that is part of your day. A lot of people I've seen will actually schedule in their time to work out, or they'll schedule in time to call a friend or call a family member, or they'll schedule their date nights with a spouse or something like that, so that it actually becomes part of your day and not just seen as some extraneous thing that if I get to it, that's great, because that's a lot less likely to actually stick. And the third thing with a habit is that it has to have a reward. And rewards are very difficult for us to really pinpoint exactly what it is that we are rewarded by. Everyone's a little different. Some people are very intrinsically motivated and intrinsically rewarded. So that is, they're internally able to reward themselves. So that feeling after you work out of, wow, that felt so good, right? That might be enough for some people to continue that. Other people might need something more extrinsic, like I'm going to allow myself to do some binge watching after I do my workout. So that's kind of the reward I get after I complete that task that I want to do. And so you have to give yourself something, because if your brain our brains work on reward systems. So we have to have some sort of reward for what we're doing. And so if we are rewarded by binge watching Netflix, then that can be our reward for what we do beforehand. If we aren't rewarding ourselves, especially at first, and this is really important until we get that habit formed, if we're not rewarding ourselves, it's not going to stick. So you have to have that reward. You have to have really all three of these pieces in there to be able to make that habit stick. And there's lots of numbers and things out there on how many times it has to happen before that happens. But those three pieces are really important to make that work. So now it seems really overwhelming to, okay, I've got to create this new habit in my life. How on earth am I going to do that? And the key is to start small. And as I turn this over to Brooke, we're going to talk about how we can make small steps to create those habits. So with that, Brooke, I am going to turn over sharing to you. So you should be able to have control of my screen now.
It went away.
It did. Okay, let's try that again. Okay, Brooke, try that again.
Wonderful. Yep, we're good now.
All right.
Little technical issues. Okay, so as we were talking about resolutions, to make those resolutions successful, we have to make goals for ourselves. So has anybody heard the term SMART goal? You can put it in the chat or use the reactions and kind of raise your hand, but have you heard of the term making a SMART goal? Good. I am seeing a few yeses. Wonderful. So we are going to take a deep dive into what a SMART goal is and how we can use it to make a goal and be successful with it. And then at the end, we're going to write some goals for ourselves. Uh-oh. Megan, can you go back? Oh, there we go. Oh, hold on. All right, so what this acronym means, so we have specific, it's measurable, it's achievable, it's relevant or realistic, and has the time bound. So using this SMART goal will help guide you in your goal setting and will kind of focus on some of your efforts, and it increases your chances of achieving your goal. It helps it make it less vague, so it's more achievable for you. Okay, so here is a template that you can use. We will have this for you later on, but this is a great template to help organize your goal into the SMART acronym to make sure that you are hitting each point so you will be successful. So we're going to go into each part of this template in this goal. So first was specific. So when you are thinking of a goal, you want to ask yourself these questions. What do I want to accomplish? Why do I want to accomplish this? What are the requirements? And what are the constraints? So in the example, I actually put an example that I'm going to work on myself for this year. So for me, I want to read more books. I was doing really well when I was a little bit younger and kind of got into this position, and I've kind of taken a time away from reading. So I want to kind of get back into it. So this is a goal for myself. So I have answer that question. What do I want to accomplish? I want to accomplish reading more. But this can be anything for you. So you just kind of want to identify what your goal is. So then we had in the acronym the M. So that was measurable. So you want to ask yourself these questions. How will I measure my progress? How will I know when the goal is accomplished? So for me, I want to read at least 10 new books. And this can be anything that is for you. So for, say you want to try and lose weight, the way you can kind of measure your progress is, are you, losing pounds? Are you losing inches in your waist? Can you feel your clothes being lighter? Or say you want to drink more water throughout the day. Is it easier? Do you feel like it's easier to get to the whole, like say you have a goal to drink a whole gallon? Share your goal with the group? We can. So I'll give you guys just a couple minutes to.
And I will add to Brooke that I posted the template that Brooke showed you earlier in the chat box. If you are able to download that, if you're not able to download that right now, we'll be able to get that for you in the handouts in the afterward. So if you can't fill out that template today, you can download it later, or we can get it to you another time.
I'll give you guys just another minute or so to work on your SMART goal. Now remember, goals can be anything that are for you. It doesn't have to be just about, if you want to do weight loss or eating healthier. It could be, journaling, like how mine was, like reading a book. It can be, organizing or spending more time with your spouse or family or friends. It could be anything tailored for you. Okay, was there anybody who would like to share? If you would like to unmute, go ahead, or if you just want to put in the chat, what was a goal that you have set for yourself this year? If you don't want to share, that's okay. But if you are comfortable, I would like to hear some of your goals that you have set for yourself. So you can unmute or put it in the chat box. So good, Karen, you said weight loss. How can we make this into a SMART goal? So you want to make sure you are using the specific, the measurable, the attainable, realistic, and the time bound. Good. Gail, clean your craft room. That is one I struggle with all of the time. I know my fellow colleagues hear it all the time that my craft room's a mess or I'm trying to clean it. So that is one I tend to make myself for multiple months, taking this area in my craft room I need to focus on this week. And next week I can focus on the other area because I do a lot of crafting. So I'm right with you, Gail. Cleaning my craft room is something I'm always doing.
My goal, one of my goals is to declutter and reorganize my house. And in order for me to be able to do that, I have to take one very small space at a time. So this week I'm really focusing on my kitchen. So one day I just did 2 cabinets that had my pantry cabinets, 2 of those. And then the next day I just did my refrigerator and freezer. And the next day I did, I'm going to do just my pots and pans, because if I try to do it all in a day, it's not going to happen. But if I take one tiny section each day, then I'm actually getting it done. And then by the end of a couple of weeks, I should have a really, really nicely organized kitchen. So that is my goal for myself. One of them, one of my many for myself that I've set. And Gail, to your point, I want to do the achievable. You have to make it work for you. So if you just say clean my craft room, so maybe for you it's 1 drawer every day or 1 shelf a day, and that way you can do a shelf, right? You can do a drawer, and so then each day as you're doing a different drawer, then all of a sudden you have a clean craft room without even realizing it.
Thank you, Karen, for sharing. Good job on using the SMART goal acronym, and you should be able to accomplish that. That is a great goal for yourself, and to make it, attainable and realistic. So you should be successful on it. So, okay, so let's continue on. Maybe. Okay, so after you set your goals, there's a few things that you need to make sure that you are doing. So planning is an important skill. Learning to plan will help you take control and reach your health goals. Planning can maximize your time and increase your chance of success with your short-term goals and overall long-term goals. Take action. Breaking your goal down to smaller weekly steps can help you to ensure in reaching your short-term goal and ultimately your long-term goal. So how Megan and Gail were talking about the craft room. So doing a drawer each day. Those are some smaller goals to reach your larger goal of having a clean craft room, which for me doesn't happen too often. So you want to remember the SMART goal. For example, if your short-term goal is to be active for 30 minutes a day, your week 1 step may be to start walking 15 minutes. 3 days the first week, and increase the following week with your time or your days, a little at a time. Part of planning is considering what are the obstacles and solutions to being successful, as well as identifying who you can contact or count on to support you in your weekly step. Preparing and planning helps prevent setbacks. So tracking what you eat and the physical activity you do are some of the most successful techniques to help you meet your goal of eating smart and moving more. Also consider tracking your progress, challenges, successes, and your health numbers. This too will contribute to your overall success. And then reflect. Take time to reflect on the prior week's progress. Were you successful at meeting your steps for the week, or did you face challenges? What can you do differently to reduce those challenges? And what does your tracking say to you? If you fell short one week, don't beat yourself up about it, but keep on trying and moving forward. Most important, don't forget to celebrate your successes. Okay, so we are going to do another mentee activity together. Megan, do you want to take the lead on this one?
Sure, yes. So I put it's the same code. So if you go back to that same site, mentee.com, and use that same code, and I put in the chat box for you, it should pop up the updated question for you. So the question is, what is one thing that you learned today that you're going to use within your next 30 days? So we put a little time bound on our question for you. And you can put more than one answer in there. I'll give you guys a minute or two to go to that site and fill that out. So we're going to use SMART goals, being aware of our cues, finding motivation, so the SMART goal was a refresher. That's great. It is good to have refreshers. Sometimes we have too much information in our heads and it gets all lost. So having that refresher is very helpful sometimes. Accountability partners. Yes, an accountability partner is really helpful, especially if you're someone who is not easily intrinsically motivated. Having that other person to help motivate you is very helpful. And make sure you let them know what your goal is. Bite size, very good. SMART goal, vague extreme goals. I like that. Yes, that's usually what our resolutions are those vague extreme goals, right? Like healthier. Well, healthier is very different to different people. So yes, that's great. That's a really great point. And actually, it looks like it was sharing within the PowerPoint, which is awesome. So that one actually worked. Okay. Thank you all for participating in that. That's called Mentee. It's a Mentimeter, and it's a fun little tool that we learned about recently. Okay, Brooke, I'll turn it back over to you.
And I think that was it on our presentation today on SMART goals and our resolutions. Does anyone have any questions for Megan and I? You can unmute yourself or put them in the chat box. We would really appreciate you completing the survey. Megan just put it in the chat, or you can see it right here. Like she had said earlier, it really helps us on what materials worked or didn't work, or what we can learn from or add or take away from our presentations. So we really appreciate you filling out these short surveys. We do have more webinars this coming month in January that kind of go with this resolutions and goals. So the next one is on January 11th, and it's over resolve to move more. And then we have our last one for January, which is on the 25th, and it's navigating the diet maze. So if that is part of your goal for this year, you may want to check in and see what other information you can learn from to help achieve your goals for this year. And then you can register right there for those webinars. So I am not seeing any questions, but I want to thank you guys for joining Megan and I today on our resolutions and goal settings. And we hope to see you for the rest of the webinars this month.
Thank you, everyone. We'll stay on for a couple more minutes in case somebody has a question, but I will stop the recording.